You've got a military transport plane on what should be a completely routine mission. The weather's clear. And then, just out of nowhere, a complete catastrophe that opens up a ton of questions. Questions that go way beyond a simple accident. So today, we're going to break down exactly what happened to Flight 543. So let's set the scene. It was a Tuesday. A Turkish Air Force C-130 Hercules, with the call sign TUAF 543, was flying from Ganja, Azerbaijan. It was heading back home to Turkey. A simple flight, except it never made it. The final, terrifying moments of the flight were actually caught on camera. And what you see isn't just a plane in trouble, it's a complete in-flight breakup. The aircraft is basically in pieces, spinning out of the sky before it hits the ground. It's just horrifying. And that, right there, is the question that immediately shot through everyone's mind. In a region as tense and complex as this one, any incident involving a military plane sparks all kinds of speculation. Was this just a tragic accident, or was it something much worse? Was it an act of aggression? To even begin to understand what could cause something this catastrophic, investigators had to start at the beginning. They had to piece together the flight's final, frantic moments, using every scrap of data they could find. The flight data paints a pretty clear picture of a totally normal flight that, in the span of just minutes, turned into an absolute disaster. It took off at 10:19, it was stable at its cruising altitude by 10:41, everything's fine. And then, just 8 minutes later, poof, the signal is gone. The end came terrifyingly fast. The human cost, well, it was total and it was immediate. The Turkish Ministry of Defense confirmed that all 20 of its soldiers on board, we're talking experienced pilots, non-commissioned officers, were killed in the crash. But maybe the biggest clue here is what didn't happen. There was no Mayday call, nothing. No report of an emergency from the cockpit. That silence, it's deafening. It suggests that whatever went wrong, it was so sudden, so catastrophic, that the crew had zero time to even react. So, with the wreckage scattered across the Georgian countryside, a joint Turkish-Georgian investigation got underway, and they were looking for any clue, anything at all, that could explain this disaster. Right away, two main theories started to form. On one hand, you have an accident. Maybe the plane's structure just failed because of its age or corrosion, or maybe some cargo shifted and threw everything off balance. On the other hand, you have something far more sinister, an external attack, maybe a missile or even an act of sabotage from inside the plane. And this right here is the crucial point. The very first look at the wreckage told a really important story. Investigators on the ground found no evidence of an external impact. The metal didn't have any of those telltale puncture holes or burn patterns that you would absolutely expect to see from a missile strike or a bomb. And that brings us to where the investigation is pointing right now. Eyewitnesses said the tail seemed to come off in midair. You combine that with flight data showing the plane was plummeting at over 19,000 feet per minute, which is just an insane rate of descent, and it screams catastrophic structural failure. So the two leading ideas, either long-term corrosion finally gave way, or some unsecured cargo shifted violently and sent the plane into a fatal loss of control. Okay, but that leads to a much bigger question. Why was a Turkish military plane flying this exact route in the first place? Well, the answer lies in a very powerful regional alliance. See, this flight wasn't random at all. It was actually part of a very deep, very strategic partnership that has been reshaping the entire geopolitical map of the South Caucasus. For decades, these three countries, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Georgia, have been building this partnership. The goal is to boost their independence, their security, and their economies. It's really an alliance built on shared interests, especially since they're surrounded by much larger competing powers. And this isn't just some paper alliance, it's forged with real, concrete things. Massive projects like oil and gas pipelines that feed Europe, new railways that connect Asia and Europe, and, critically, very deep military cooperation with regular joint exercises. And that brings us right back to Flight 543. This wasn't some special one-off flight. It was part of a routine air bridge, moving people and supplies back and forth to support this very military cooperation. In a way, it was a symbol of that alliance in action. So, with the investigation leaning more and more towards mechanical failure, the history and the condition of the actual aircraft has come under a microscope. 57 years old. Now, the C-130 Hercules is an absolute legend. It's known for being a reliable workhorse, but this specific plane was nearly 6 decades old. I mean, think about this. It rolled off the Lockheed production line way back in 1968. It served with the Royal Saudi Air Force for decades before Turkey even acquired it in 2010. And even with all that age, it was flying regularly, which is a testament to the design, for sure, but also a huge potential risk factor. And here's the thing, this wasn't an isolated issue. The age of Turkey's entire C-130 fleet is a known problem. In fact, a deal was just recently announced to buy newer, modern C-130J models to replace these old planes. For the crew of Flight 543, that modernization just didn't come soon enough. So as investigators work on analyzing the black box and preparing the final report, the tragedy of Flight 443 really leaves us with a pretty stark realization. You see, this isn't just about one plane. It's not just about one mechanical failure. It's really about the immense risks that come with trying to maintain these critical strategic partnerships using aging equipment. In a part of the world where military readiness is everything, the fall of Flight 543 is just a tragic reminder of how razor-thin the line can be between a routine operation and a catastrophic failure.